skin types, ages, the cream for 30 years old, the cream for 40 years old. These are things you heard and things maybe you already gave some thought about. So let's talk if this is the way the skin functions. Is skin really about decades in our age? Is skin really trapped in one skin type? Let's talk. Hi skincare people, happy to be here again. Custodio, DH Traveler, always asking the question, what is that skin wanted before marketing got in the way? Today's topic, it's a bit philosophical, but very centered in skin reality and in skin biology. Accepting you were born with a certain skin, I would not say type, I would say a skin identity, a skin direction. So in my case, I have always been more on the oily side, which is lucky when you grow older, 50 years old like me. If you were born with a more oilier tendency, your skin tends to age more gracefully, unless during your youth you were teasing too much that acne and oiliness, so sometimes you will have some scarring. I'm lucky enough that I start working in the industry very early, so 19 years old, that's when I got my first job in skincare industry, and because of that, not skincare industry, I mean beauty industry, it was a perfumery, so it was not specifically skincare. Then I went more towards skincare. But the thing that I've learned from very early ages is that you do not squeeze, because the scarring comes a lot from that squeezing, or if you squeeze, you know, well, that's not the topic for this video. But the topic is, yes, you were born with a certain tendency, but don't lock yourself too much into that tendency. Like if you have a label, I'm oily, and therefore I can only buy products, apply products which are labeled for oily skin. And by the same token, just because you label yourself, I have an oily skin, also don't go under the illusion that all products labeled for oily skin are good for you. So it's exactly that freedom, that mindset to be more open about getting to know your skin and understanding that your skin will have nuances depending on the season, depending on your health, your mood. As an individual, you have that choice. Much more than looking for explanations outside of you, try to find reasons and meaning inside of you. So what is my skin? How does it react? What really bothers me is so much more important. And I tell you, from my decades working in beauty and contacting to consumers, I've always been fascinated how much we sometimes make assumptions that just because that lady, that man, that girl, that young man has some lines and wrinkles, this is their concern. You know, I think I was very lucky, exactly now that I spoke about starting to work in the beauty industry when I was 19, it just comes to me that lived memory from my early 20s. My first job in a big brand, because before that I was working more in retail, it's Chanel, and I've mentioned this already in the channel, also in Instagram. By the way, if you're not following me on Instagram, please consider doing so. I've mentioned there oftentimes, and here I believe as well, that Chanel was my first experience working at the time in education, so training the sales promoters, training the marketing people behind the brand in terms of the product knowledge. And one thing I've learned from Chanel in selling techniques and selling psychology, which I respect forever and I owe a lot. Chanel is a brand who invested a lot in developing the skills of the people working for the brand. One thing, they were very strict. For instance, you never tell a person you have an oily skin or you are an oily skin, because it was not elegant, like the idea of dripping oil, it's not very elegant. And somehow that's the selling techniques. That's the way the industry, it's also shaping itself, and there's a geography in all these things, right? So dry is here, oil is here, combination is here. There are lines. Each brand tries to tick all those boxes. So there is an element of organizing a brand, organizing shelves, organizing a website where those filters and those entering elements are there. And all this detour from Chanel, it was more the idea that you don't really communicate so much in terms of skin types, but more in terms of skin conditions. So, and I learned that from a very early age. And today that I know more about skincare and about skin function, cells, about formulation than I knew then when I was 20 years old, I see that there is a biological element to that, which is very valuable, which is you stay more open, knowing that you are more tendency to oiliness or to dryness, or you are very balanced in between, or depending on the season you are more combination, but then you think your moment, how your skin looks in that moment, and more than thinking just about dry oil extremes, you think about what really concerns you. Texture, it's extremely relevant for complying with your skincare, using it with pleasure on a daily basis. So textures are very important. For instance, I shock a lot of people when I say, I never use a moisturizer. I never use a cream. There is nothing in my bathroom which comes in a jar, or maybe some masks, but very few things in my bathroom come in a mask. So it looks like a lab. It's just pipettes and pumps, serums, because that's what I do. I mix in different serums or layer serums and boosters, because I think that those textures are always more pleasant for my oily prone skin. And then because I'm a psycho for sunscreens, the sunscreen provides enough of that moisture during the day, which the skin might be needing. And it was very freedom moment when I start really trying serums, boosters and sunscreen on top, skipping the moisturizer. I can tell you that maybe for 15 years in my life, I was always under that school teacher pointing the finger. After the serum, you apply the cream, and then you apply the sunscreen. Maybe that's what you do. And you are chasing, like a dog chasing the tail, running around in circles, trying to find the right cream that matches the right sunscreen, and maybe the textures are just becoming more complicated for you. So to me, active ingredients are very important, but texture, it's also very important. And that's also the science of discovering your perfect skincare. It's thinking the active ingredient you seek, but also the texture that you comply, that you enjoy, that it's not a burden, it's a pleasure to apply. So I believe that some of those product categories and skin types are not helping you, and you need to have that freedom in your mind. As much as your age, to close this, I was also raising the question, what about creams for 20 years old, creams for 40 years old? This is actually a lot of marketing nonsense, because if you believe that biological aging determines your skin aging, of course there are components of it which are biological. You produce less collagen from a certain age, so of course there are elements, but more than 70% of your visible age signs are actually due to your lifestyle, even 80% in some studies. So it's like how much you look older in the mirror has 10-20% to do with your biological age, and minimum of 70 have to do with your lifestyle. So that's, in my eyes, bulldozers the nonsense of creams for 30 years old, 40 years old. I see the benefit, I understand why those categories and geographies are there. They help to navigate and they help to sell, because you are buying quickly the product for your age and you move on. So it's a way to make it more fast food, if I must say. So Swissline, you will never find these, or at least not under my surveillance. I would never let it cross and pass, because I think it's very misleading. I don't care if you are 30, if you are 40, I care how your skin looks, because that's your skin moment. If you are 30 years old who has misbehaved, stay under the sun more than you should, maybe not have a proper diet, sleep patterns, you're a smoker, already there. If you have a person which is 25 years old, heavy smoker, and a person which is 45 years old, never smoked, never exposed the skin to the sun, etc., etc., you likely will sell the 40 years old cream to the 20 years old and the 20 years old cream to the 40 years old. So I absolutely don't care, and I think you should not care about your passport age when it comes to defining your skincare. It's the mirror age, the age you see in the mirror, that should determine how you go about your skincare. So, in a nutshell, just revising, I think the first questions, skin types, do they matter? Well, there is a certain direction that matters. In my eyes, much more to choose the right texture and the right layering than the product label specific to your skin condition. When it comes to age groups, that's boring in my eyes. I could name a few brands which have always been structured like that. I never ever enjoy coming too close to those brands, because that depresses me. I think it's wrong, I think it's so basic, and I would love to one of these days, if I'm in bad mood, to go to one of the counters, one of those brands, and just challenge them, because I'm 50 years old, and you know what? I don't think I look 50 years old. So what am I going to do? Mature skincare, rich textures, layer a bunch of things that I don't want to layer just because I'm 50 years old? Or can I still rely on my lighter textures, making my combinations, but the ingredients are for 50 years old, be sure, just the textures are not. So I hope this was useful. If this content interests you, please consider subscribing, help the channel to grow, and we see each other here from times to times, maybe every week, maybe not every week, on Instagram, more or less every day. So always saying goodbye. We say also no to boring skincare. Boring skincare, it's about age, it's about skin type. Ciao, take care.